Why is the Middle East so infested with horrible regimes? Israel, Syria, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Afghanistan. The Middle East is infested with awful regimes. Murderous regimes, authoritarian regimes, warmongering regimes. Why? Why is this the case? Some may point to the history of conflict. Some may say this is the cause, although it is unclear whether this is a cause or a consequence. There have been many wars in the recent history of the region. The Afghanistan War, the Iraq War, the Syrian Civil War, the Iran-Iraq War, the Soviet-Afghan War, the various Arab-Israeli wars. The Middle East has a history of conflict, a very extensive history of conflict. Conflict often gives rise to brutal authoritarian regimes and violent extremists. Cruelty is normalized, compassion is corroded. The history of conflict is certainly part of the explanation. It has contributed significantly to the modern politics of the region. But it is not the full explanation. Southeast Asia experienced a lot of conflict. The Indochina War, the Vietnam War, the bombing of Laos and Cambodia, the Cambodian genocide, and the war that ended it. But this region is relatively safe and stable today. The Middle East has some characteristics that have resulted in the prevalence of brutal authoritarian regimes. A history of extensive foreign meddling. This foreign meddling has included regime change. Regime change creates chaos and instability. Out of chaos and instability, brutal forces often arise. Foreign meddling also means backing governments that may be unpopular or unviable. Foreign backing makes it easier for brutal governments to survive. There is also the religious element. The Middle East is of massive significance to the Abrahamic religions. Many holy sites and special locations are in the Middle East. For this reason, many extremists are drawn to the Middle East. The region is extremely religiously diverse. The often brutal Abrahamic religions dominate. Religious sentiments have been made more intense by the history of conflict and instability. Conflict and instability inevitably result in increased extremism, and increased extremism inevitably results in conflict and instability. It is a vicious cycle, a cycle that has consumed countries like Syria, Libya, and Iraq. Countries where Western intervention, regime change, conflict, and instability have resulted in large numbers of extremists. ISIS being perhaps the cardinal example. It is a very simple thing. Chaos and instability creates extremists, and extremists create chaos and instability. Soon you have a very vicious cycle on your hands. But why does the Middle East have so many murderous regimes? A complete answer would include multiple factors. Religion, foreign interference, historical conflict, natural resources, geostrategic value, a harsh environment. All of these things have contributed to the brutal nature of governance in the region. The Middle East attracts a lot of foreign attention. It is a place of religious significance. It is a place of economic and military significance. The natural resources of the region attract considerable attention, as do the vital shipping lanes that run through it. This attention results in foreign influence and more extreme measures than may otherwise be taken. The extreme geostrategic significance of the region is thought to justify extreme actions. This has resulted in often amoral and brutal political actions. The region is too important. Too much is at stake. Moral concerns are nothing but a hindrance. This is not my view, but this is a view that has consumed many foreign policy makers. And this has contributed to the large number of horrible regimes in the region. Good and evil are ignored in favour of economic and military concerns. But what is the solution to this? A less amoral foreign policy might be a good start. And paradoxically, a more moralistic foreign policy may be economically and militarily beneficial, because it may result in a more stable and peaceful Middle East. This would be economically and militarily beneficial. The endless conflict and chaos within the region is very bad for the economic and security interests of every country on Earth. A more moralistic approach could help to bring an end to the chaos and conflict, and in doing so, secure our economic and strategic interests. Morality is often treated as separate from economics and security, but often these things are not as separate as we sometimes tell ourselves. When we abandon one in pursuit of the other, we often lose both. A more moralistic foreign policy can result in a more peaceful and stable region, furthering our economic and security interests. Morality, security, economics. All of these things need to be considered. Neglect one, and you undermine the others. These considerations are not as separate as some people seem to think. They cannot be disconnected from one another. We would be wise to remember that.